The Russian army has taken a decisive step toward the complete capture of the entire Donetsk region. Rayaleksandrovka has fallen. Ukrainian forces have also suffered heavy defeats near Lyman and in Kostiantynivka. President Trump is angrily trying to justify himself after a wave of outrage swept across the world over what many see as his capitulation to the fanatical Ayatollahs. The memorandum signed to end the war in the Persian Gulf leaves a deeply troubling impression. Elon Musk described it this way: "The Lord speaks through my mouth and shows that what I told you was the truth." More on Musk as well. Musk has declared the European Union the Fourth Reich. Stay with the channel, and you'll learn things that Western media outlets won't tell you, because they have drifted far too far from reality. Now, two events on the Russian-Ukrainian front, against the backdrop of Zelensky's continuing claims of victory, amplified by media outlets around the world, and threats against Russia following the Ukrainian drone raid on Moscow. Developments continue to move in an extremely unfavorable direction for the Ukrainian army. Yesterday, my friends, the most important and decisive defeat of the Ukrainian army occurred in Donbas. A defeat after which the fate of Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, and indeed all of Donbas can be considered effectively decided. The Russians have taken Rayaleksandrovka. I have repeatedly told you that the fighting for this settlement has critical importance. The terrain, combined with the nature of modern warfare, a drone war, in which 80% of casualties are inflicted by drones, makes Rayaleksandrovka the key to the defense of Donbas. That key is now in Russian hands. Videos have been published from at least 6 different locations inside the settlement. They confirm full Russian control over Rayaleksandrovka. Naturally, the AFU does not acknowledge this, and pro-Ukrainian commentators, including Plyfra, pretend that everything is fine. But recently Livera seems to have completely switched sides. Maybe somebody paid him, but he is no longer a neutral observer. He is an outright Ukrainian propagandist. The reality, however, is that Rayaleksandrovka has been taken, and this is not just another village captured by Russian forces. It is the key to all of Donbas. The reason is simple. In modern warfare, 80% of casualties are caused by drones. Drones are controlled by operators, and effective control is achieved within a direct radio horizon. In other words, where the radio signal or fiber optic connection controlling the drone travels in a straight line without obstacles interrupting the signal. The terrain of Donbas, particularly the Donetsk Ridge, creates a unique situation. The highest elevations remaining under Ukrainian control are located precisely around Rayaleksandrovka. From there toward Kramatorsk, the terrain only slopes downward, and it does so in a straight line. The elevation difference between Rayaleksandrovka and Kramatorsk ranges from roughly 10 to 127 meters, all descending toward Kramatorsk. Direct radio horizon, direct line of sight, direct control. This allows Russian forces, after capturing Rayaleksandrovka and establishing drone operator positions there, to gain total control over all communications routes leading into Kramatorsk. In effect, they can blockade the city and employ their preferred strategy of exhausting the Ukrainian garrison, a strategy they successfully used over the last 3 months in Kostiantynivka. There, isolated Ukrainian units gradually exhausted their ammunition supplies. They ran out of food. They lost the ability to evacuate the wounded, because Russian forces hunted anything moving along the roads they had brought under fire control. Roads leading from Kostiantynivka toward Alexeyevo-Druzhkivka and onward to Kramatorsk. Roads that supplied the Ukrainian garrison. The result was the near collapse of AFU defenses in Kostiantynivka. More reports have arrived from there. The metallurgical plant has been captured. The medical complex has been captured. The resistance of surrounded Ukrainian units has been destroyed. Only scattered pockets of resistance remain in Kostiantynivka. Ukrainian fighters are attempting to break out of encirclement in small groups and individually. They still hold several city blocks in the section of the city closer to Drushkivka. But roughly 90% of Kostiantynivka is already under Russian control. And at that exact moment came the report that Rayaleksandrovka had fallen. You can see the topographic map of the Kramatorsk area. Kramatorsk is marked in green, and Rayaleksandrovka is here. I've specifically marked its location. It doesn't appear clearly on this scale of the map, but if you zoom in, it becomes visible. I've placed the corresponding marker there. It sits on the ridge. It is the dominant height. In any previous war, that alone would not necessarily decide anything. But drones decide everything today, and they provide Russian forces with a strategic position that now allows them to systematically and deliberately destroy Ukrainian logistics serving Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, and Lyman as well. Lyman, incidentally, is already being captured, and that condemns these cities to eventual collapse. That's it. After the fall of Rayaleksandrovka, Zelensky would be better off simply withdrawing his forces from Donbas. Holding it is a hopeless endeavor. They will not be able to stay there. This will become another Bakhmut. Bakhmut was also located in a similar lowland position. Ukraine lost 100,000 people there. According to Biden's figures, Russian forces suffered around 80,000 casualties during the assault. Keep that in mind. The same thing will happen here. The situation in Donbas has changed dramatically and sharply against the AFU. At the same time, extremely unpleasant news has also arrived from near Lyman. Russian forces destroyed the last crossing over the Seversky Donets River. The crossing had supplied the 3rd Army Corps and allowed Beletsky's forces to continue fighting and resisting Russian attacks. You understand perfectly well that without supplies, no defense is possible. No amount of courage. No amount of soldierly bravery. No amount of military skill can sustain a defense without logistics. But now, the final supply artery of the AFU near Lyman has been destroyed by a guided glide bomb weighing 3,000 kilograms. A single bomb completely obliterated the crossing that Ukrainian forces had built with great effort. It cannot be repaired. Obviously, the same story applies to any future crossings. As Ukrainians build them, Russian forces destroy them. Russian drones patrol every meter of the Seversky Donets. They have been hunting Ukrainian logistics there since last year. The 3rd Corps near that makes the abandonment of Lyman and the withdrawal of Beletsky's forces to the western bank of the Seversky Donets inevitable. Obviously, fighting will continue for quite some time. This is not moving as quickly as events around Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. There, we are talking about months of combat. But the outcome is already decided. The Russians have won. In principle, there is no reason to continue the killing. Agreements could be signed now, based on an AFU withdrawal from Donbas. They will not be able to hold it. There are no remaining options. Beletsky will have to retreat as well, especially since new reports from Lyman itself describe further Russian advances. Once again, it is amusing to watch paid pro-Ukrainian talking heads trying to explain the inexplicable. And Deep State keeps drawing maps that have absolutely nothing to do with reality. A large part of Lyman is already under full Russian control. The 3rd Corps is fighting with its last remaining strength. What is happening now are essentially rearguard battles without supplies. They cannot hold out for long. Further north, fighting is already underway near Kostiantynivka. Ukraine reluctantly admits this through clenched teeth, claiming only that isolated Russian detachments are infiltrating the area. But we all know how closely official Ukrainian reports correspond to what is actually happening on the ground. When you follow both sides of the front, it becomes very obvious. The same thing happened during Ukraine's offensive near Zaporizhia. Russian reports did not match reality at all. Ukrainian forces advanced nearly 20 kilometers, while Russian officials were still saying, "The Ukrainians are infiltrating." So don't think this is some uniquely malicious characteristic of one side. It is a characteristic of all armies at war. As Bismarck said, "Never are so many lies told as before a wedding, after a hunt, and during a war." And we are at war. So people lie relentlessly. Overall, the entire situation on the Donbas front raises serious questions about AFU strategy and Zelensky's entire uncompromising campaign. We fight. We stand where we stand. That approach is no longer sustainable. Donbas will have to be abandoned. And that also helps explain Zelensky's growing hysteria.